Welcome back to Town Manager's Corner. My name is Michael Maresco, and I am the Town Manager for the Town of Abington. And I'm continuing in my series of informing our residents here in the Town of Abington about the need for an override in our town. As folks have been reading and hearing on the radio, we're not in this alone. There were approximately about 70 towns, believe it or not, and cities in Massachusetts that are facing a revenue problem. And that's what this is in the town of Abington. It's really a revenue problem. It's not a misallocation of funds. It's not anything nefarious. There's just not enough revenues coming into the town to sustain the programs that we need to provide and quite frankly, what our residents demand of us. So I want to just start off by reminding people that tomorrow, Saturday, April 25th is the town election. It's important that people get out and vote. Polls are open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. On Monday evening, May 4th, at Abington High School Complex, town meeting will kick off right at 7 o'clock. So if it's important, if you're concerned about funding for a number of our departments, it's important that you show up in town, come up to town meeting, and be an active participant. Town meeting is one of the purest forms of democracy where our residents have an opportunity to come before their other residents and talk about what's important to them and why we need services. And finally, the final piece of the override is the special election that will take place on May 16th. So Saturday, May 16th, there will be a special election. And the polls will be open for residents to vote on the override questions on May 16th. Polls are open 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Now, just to remind folks, and I know I've probably said this in the other segments that we've done, in order for the override to pass, it needs to pass at town meeting, and then it needs to pass at the ballot box. So it's important that people show up at town meeting on May 4th, and that they show up at the special election on May 16th. Now, today, what I would like to do is I want to just spend a few minutes talking about what the cuts are taking place at Town Hall, what programs and what departments will be affected by those cuts. And then I want to take the next segment of our get-together will be to just remind folks about the other cuts to those other departments that will require an override. And then I'll remind folks once again about the important dates. So let me get into it. So Town Hall. So along with fire, along with police and the schools and the senior center and a number of our other departments, the Town Hall is faced with about a $358,380 shortfall if the override does not pass. What will be affected? Well, town employees' benefit budget will fall short by about $200,000. And when I say about $200,000, I just want to be clear, you know, when you're dealing with financial numbers, it's hard to be exact because there's a number of steps. There's a number of pieces of cost that go into that. So, you know, I say about because I don't want to say a wrong number. So that's why we say approximately or about or something like that. So we're talking about a potential shortfall of about $200,000, and that would leave Medicare cost increases for new family plan enrollment unfunded. And because retiree premiums are not included in this budget, the town faces a significant risk of ending the year in a deficit. IT department will also be affected if the override for town meeting doesn't happen. IT's been trying for a couple of years now to get an IT assistant. There's a tremendous amount of work. IT, cybersecurity, the IT coordinator is responsible for not just town hall, but working with the DPW, which has a number of their own buildings and vehicles, working with the library, working with the senior center, working with the fire department and the police department, and the police have computers in their police cruisers. So there's a huge need for IT. Along with that, we have to balance training for all of our employees on cybersecurity. It's very important that people are aware of, and they have to be very cautious when they get emails, and when they're responding, they're responding to the right email. They're not opening those types of emails that could potentially, if we don't have proper training, could potentially cost hundreds of millions of dollars. Also, the IT assistant really is for a succession plan. In government, it's important that department heads have a succession plan. What will happen if they move on and take a job somewhere else? What will happen when they want to retire? So the IT assistant is a real position. It's to get somebody in there because the IT director is approaching retirement, and that person would like to retire in the very near future. Also, veteran services. We have an incredible veterans department. Adam does a wonderful job. We'll make sure that our veterans get every benefit that they're entitled to and they should be receiving. There's a potential cut to some of the benefits. About 75%, 80% of the benefit money that the town gives out to the veterans, we do get reimbursed from the Commonwealth. So it's that small piece of the money beyond the reimbursement that we may have some challenges with. The health department will not have enough funding needed for hazardous waste disposal, jeopardizing safe compliance of handling dangerous materials. And you might ask, well, what type of dangerous materials? And that is, people come to the Board of Health and they drop off their needles. So that's the real bulk of it. Sometimes they have old medications, things like that, and the Board of Health is very good about taking that stuff in, making sure that it's safely disposed of so it doesn't cause harm to the environment, doesn't cause harm to any of our residents. The Treasurer's Office, another department in Town Hall that would be impacted. The Treasurer's Office would remain understaffed. Payroll, billing, financial processing will fall behind, putting the town's annual audit at risk. Just so folks know, annually the town of Abington, like all other towns, is required to have an annual audit by an audit firm to make sure that the cash reconciles with the bank statements, etc. So people should feel good about the finances in the town, that that takes place every single year. Other affected departments at Town Hall will face cuts to basic operational needs, including office supplies, training. It's important that there be funding to train our staff. It's important that they be on the cusp of new ways to provide services, changes in laws, changes in legal issues, and how we implement some of our programs. It's important, when sometimes when people hear, training and they go to a conference, but these conferences are important for two phases. First phase, the conference gives our professional people the opportunity to interact with people in their profession. There's nothing wrong with using an idea that someone else is using that works really well and could be beneficial to us. So there's that social aspect of it where they get to communicate with their peers and talk about the programs that may work in another town that may work here. There's no sense of reinventing the wheel if there's an idea that we can capture and implement for our residents. The other thing is there'll be less money for equipment. Equipment does break down. We need to replace equipment periodically. Mandated advertisement. We spend a pretty large sum of funds on legally mandated advertisement, and that is for things like a conservation meeting, planning board articles that have to be out there, RFPs. if we issue an RFP for, whether it's trash or planning or some other type of service that we're doing, RFP, invitation to bid, all of those require advertisement in a newspaper that circulates amongst our community. So those costs, we're going to have trouble meeting some of that. And finally, reducing our ability to meet state requirements and provide other essential services. So that gives you an idea. I thought it was important that I speak about Town Hall, because as your town manager, these are a lot of the core functions that I'm responsible to make sure that these happen every single day on behalf of our residents. And I wanted to keep with the programming. We've heard from fire, we heard from police, we heard from the Council on Aging, we heard from our superintendent about schools, DPW. So I wanted to make sure that residents could hear about how, if the override fails, what would be affected at Town Hall. Just something for our residents to think about. Now, what I'd like to do is just take a few minutes to sort of go through and remind folks about the impact, because as I'm out in the town visiting different places, popping into the library to see how the library's doing, over to the DPW. I try to get over to the senior center to have lunch once a week, although the last couple of weeks I haven't been able to get out of the office. It's been really very busy trying to get ready for town meeting, working with our moderator and our financial staff to get the budget fine-tuned. So it was kind of tough to get out. But I do go to the local supermarket, Trucci's, and I'm in there. People will come up to me, and it's great. A lot of our residents have been tuning in to the Town Manager's Corner to hear about the fiscal impacts of the budget and the fiscal impact of the override if it doesn't fail, and what services will be affected, etc. And they ask these questions. So I reminded some of the folks that I would do sort of a recap on my last segment as it relates to the budget and the override at this particular point in time. So just to, I'm going to just sort of go down the list and start talking about fire. We heard when the fire chief was here, they're faced with about a $275,514 shortfall if the override doesn't pass. Now, what will be affected? Well, without that additional funding, that could put in jeopardy the second ambulance, could be forced out of service, directly slowing the medical response. Now, I'm not saying that because I want people to be afraid. I want to make sure that people understand how it would play out. The reason that would happen, because a big portion of the $275,514 really addresses overtime. What happens is, we have X amount of our employees are entitled to take a vacation day. Sometimes they get sick, they need to take a sick day. When things like that happen, those shifts have to be covered. These are the fire department, the police department. They provide 24/7, 365-day-a-year critical services to our residents. And if the overtime isn't there to supplement the covering a shift of when a firefighter is on vacation or sick time, there may not be enough personnel to operate that second ambulance. Now, why is that an issue? Well, that's an issue. Certainly you don't want to be the second call of a night back to back when the second ambulance might not be readily available. That doesn't mean, and I don't want people to be scared, that doesn't mean that an ambulance is not going to show up. It just means that we rely on our surrounding communities to provide mutual aid. Just like we provide mutual aid to them, they provide the mutual aid to us. And we're able to do that. Sometimes we might not. There are times when they call when we're already busy, but there will always be an ambulance going to someone's home. But it might not be a Abington ambulance. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention about the ambulance is it's one thing about being the second ambulance. We talk about that. More importantly, the ambulance service is a revenue producer for the town of Abington. When the ambulance rolls out, the insurance, the person that's riding in the ambulance, getting top-notch care from our paramedics en route to the hospital or at their home, we bill the insurance companies. So when we're not able to get that second ambulance out there, we lose that revenue. That revenue instead will go to Rockland, if Rockland's the one that responds, East Bridgewater or Bridgewater, whatever the surrounding community, they would get the revenue. So that's the sort of fiscal impact of what happens when the second ambulance isn't running. Further cuts eliminate essential fire safety programs, such as cancer screenings that the fire department does, specialized rescue, and reduce department's ability to protect both the public and its own members. Also, could affect the PPE replacement program will pause, leaving firefighters in wet, contaminated gear for their entire shift, and without the required equipment for new hirees. So PPEs is just that. It's the personal protective equipment. When a firefighter goes out, you may see it. They have their jacket on, usually has their name on the back. When they're at a fire, there's carcinogens. When they come back, they have to decontaminate their clothes and things like that. So that's what they're talking about, the ability. You want to make sure that each firefighter has backup uniforms. So that is sort of, I wanted to address those things that I mentioned now relate directly to the $275,514 cut to the fire department's budget. Next, I want to just go through the police department. And the impact on the police department will be rather significant. And that is about $875,486. And our chief, like the fire chief's been out talking to people. He's hosted a nighttime meeting at the police department's community room. He's been out meeting groups for coffee and talking about how important it is that the override pass and that his department has the appropriate funding. I think first and foremost, the most important thing to mention is that if the override doesn't pass, 6 of the 7 new officers will have to be laid off, unfortunately. And that will be terrible for them and their families. More importantly, I think that will be terrible for the town of Abington, because for the first time in many years, there's a full complement of police officers. They're young, they're freshly out of the academy, they're eager to be out there, they're excited, they love their jobs, and they're taking in all the knowledge from the superior officers that are training them and working side by side with them. On top of the 6 officers, if the override doesn't pass, you'd also lose a public records clerk, which is a requirement. Public records clerk does just what you think it does. Police department gets numerous requests for public records, the whole gambit, whether it's an arrest, whether it's a red light incident, speeding tickets, you name it. And there's a person that's assigned for handling those requests. There's also a part-time firearms licensing clerk that would be affected. So if you have a card license to carry a firearm, there may be long lines and wait times to be able to get in and schedule something like that, because the part-time clerk wouldn't be available. Also, a part-time court prosecutor. People might say, oh, I wasn't even aware the police had a prosecutor, but yes. So police go out there, they protect you, they arrest people, they go to courts for arraignment, and this particular court prosecutor is there and works through the legal and judicial system on the charges at hand, and answers any of those types of questions at the court level. And then another would be a part-time evidence officer. And the evidence officer, it's a really big job. They're responsible for all the evidence. Anytime a police officer makes an arrest or confiscates something, they stop and they do a drug arrest. And, the drugs then are cataloged and they're put into the evidence room, which is a locked and secured. Very few people have access to it, but there's a tremendous amount of paperwork that's required to make sure that the evidence doesn't disappear and that it's articulated chain of command, of custody for that particular thing. And then also a part-time animal control officer. And the animal control officer, just that, the deal with the animal issues that citizens will call in, things like that. So those are what will be affected by the police, and also potentially with them also some overtime. So once again, the police department override portion is $875,486. Next is the schools, and I will tell you, since I've been here, I've been working closely with Dr. Michella, who is a fantastic superintendent for the school children and for the residents here. We get together every 2 weeks, sometimes merely a phone call, but just to have that communication so we each know what's going on. And the superintendent and the business manager attend department head meetings, and I really appreciate that. I think it's so important to have that type of communication with the schools. School department, and if you go to their website, they have a great website which deals with their cuts in depth. I did a little printout. If you want to print it out and study it, superintendent's done a great job about the impactfulness of where those cuts are coming from. Which schools, which teachers, which paraprofessionals, all by school, including the administration office and the administration itself. So the schools are really faced with losing. They had a couple of people that have now either retired or won't be coming back. So originally when Dr. Michella did her report on the budget to the school committee, it was about 28.1 full-time, and now I think it's down to about 21.1 full-time employees that will be lost if the override was not supported. The override, the schools would be short about $1,622,114, and that would cover those full-time teachers, tutors, SPED, administrative assistants, and custodial staff. So the superintendent, it was a tough job, but she went through each and every school and sort of balanced the cuts. So yes, they will impact the school's ability to deliver services, but it doesn't devastate one particular school. And I just want to give you, if you go onto the school's website, you will see they have information on the override, the election, and the budget. And I think it's important that people tune in. Now, it's called FY2027 Proposed Cuts. So if you go to www.abingtonps.org and you click on FY2027 Proposed Cuts, you will come to Dr. Michella's report that she put together, and you can see it's all color coordinated. It has the dollar amounts, the position, and she also has a portion in there what's level funded and what will be level service funded. As folks know, when I get to the end of this, just before we conclude, I'll remind folks about the level funded budget, level service budget, and remind about the dates. So those are how the schools impacted. DPW. DPW now for I think the superintendent director told me that they've been asking for about half a dozen years now for 2 additional employees. And really, in the summer, it's very hard for the DPW. And they have many, many fields that need mowing, cemeteries, the municipal buildings, all of that. And they operate on a very small staff. And at the same time, these same staff people are responding to potholes in the roads that need to be fixed, streets that the street sweeper needs to go out and pick up the winter sand, all of that. So really, it will impede Johnstone's ability to some point to deliver services. The financial impact to the DPW will be $261,094, and that's really two laborers, stormwater drainage improvements that won't happen, lag time in being able to cut lawn and weed whack. I didn't want to leave that portion out because, part of cutting the lawns and stuff like that, especially when you get into the cemetery, requires weed whacking, and weed whacking is essential so that buildings look great. It's important. They're assets. They're owned by you, the taxpayer, and it's our responsibility to make sure that they're properly maintained and that the grass is cut and the sidewalks are swept and things like that. So, that loss potentially, if the override doesn't pass, of $261,094 will impact John's ability to deliver those services that the residents require. Council on Aging. I mentioned earlier in the program, I try to get out once a week to the Council on Aging to see residents that go there. Amy Barrett does a phenomenal job at the senior center. We have a great staff down there, and there's so many programs, whether it's dancing, educational, health programs. Sometimes people, it's this great gathering place. People, I go in there for lunch, I see people playing card games, I see people playing board games. I see our state rep, our state senator stops by there. A number of our select board members stop by there. And it's just great to see our residents. And, when I'm in there, the residents do ask questions about, can you explain how the override works? What are the financial impacts of the override? How did we get into this situation? So it's great to be there, be visible, and be able to answer those questions for them. Really, for the Council on Aging, what's at risk if the override doesn't pass is really the ability of the COA to grant funding to fill those gaps. So, we get grants for programs. We're able to do those programs. When we want to extend those programs to other residents that come down to the senior center, when I say other residents, our Abington seniors, the money may not be able to be there to supplement what we're getting from grant funding. The COA staff does a great job, like all of our department heads, really making sure that we're going after grants that are out there. I commend the department heads in our town from a budgetary standpoint. They only spend money on stuff that they truly, really need, and they are really excellent at seeking out and going after grants. And I think that's very important. It's important that the taxpayers know that, because that helps us keep the cost controlled when we're using state money. If we're not applying for state money, then our neighbors, Rockland, may apply for a grant that we were going to apply for. And guess what? Because we weren't able to apply for that grant, Rockland gets that money instead of us. So I don't mean to pick on Rockland. It's a great community. Could be East Bridgewater, Marshfield, anywhere. It's important that we be in line to get what is available for us. It will also reduce long-term financial stability. It will have a potential impact on staffing positions, and limits the ability to maintain current level of services. When we talk about the staffing, it's really about the funding formula for grants. A number of our staff people at the senior center are funded by grants, but in order to apply for that grant, there's a complicated financial formula which requires an investment from the taxpayer, from town government. We also have retention challenges about keeping some of the staff people there, keeping some of the programs that may need additional funding. Staffing reductions also would affect really delivery of services. Will we have enough volunteers there on a daily basis or a weekly basis to help with dancing lessons, to help with blood pressure screening or diabetes screening or Meals on Wheels programs. Also, it's great to go there for lunch. They serve lunch. I think it's like $5. You get a fantastic lunch. There's entertainment. It's important that we have entertainment. Those are all great activities to keep our seniors young. They're young at heart, young at mind, and they want to be physically active. So, it's important that there be the funding. It's a small amount of money, but it's very impactful. And I think that's the one thing that Amy wanted me to mention, that even though it's a small amount of money, it's extremely impactful. It's $6,468. Library will also be affected if the override doesn't pass. The library effect is about $13,964. Now, what will that affect? Well, that's going to affect library programs, and that will affect materials. So one thing, libraries never have enough materials. When I talk about materials, it's books. I think we're seeing a resurgence since COVID. Deb Grimmett does a phenomenal job at our library. There's been an uptick at our library in particular after COVID. People wanting to go to the library, people wanting to come and take out books. For the longest time, people were reading books online, but there's nothing like, getting a book, taking that book home, taking your kids up there, picking books. But not only does the library have books, but they also have computer games and music that you can take out a CD or something. I'm probably not using the right technology, but they do have those things. It's not just about books. But the other great thing is they have so many great programs. They have the children come in with their parents in the morning during the day, and there's someone to read stories to them. They use their room. They have various exhibits. They have guest speakers in all of those types of programs. So from a programmatical standpoint, the $13,964 will impede the library's ability to deliver some of those wonderful services that our residents, that our children are used to having. And we want to make sure that they're able to do that. So what do those all add up to? So those all add up to $1,341,020, and that is what the override represents. That is the $275,514 for the fire department, $875,486 for the police department, $1,622,114 for the school budget, $261.94 for the public works department, $6,468 for the council on aging, $13,964 for the public library, $358,380 for town hall services. Now, I mentioned as I was going through this that I would touch upon when you go to town meetings. So town meetings coming up. To remind folks, tomorrow, town election. Polls are open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday, May 4th, a week from this Monday, is town meeting, 7 o'clock at night. Now, the warrant will be posted probably later on today. People will be able to take a look at it. What I wanted to mention is I wanted to spend a couple of minutes talking about the dynamic of voting on the budget. So there will be two versions of the budget. There will be a level-funded version of the budget and a level-service version of the budget. Level-funded means that what the departments received in the fiscal year that we're in right now, FY26, is what they would be funded for in FY27. Now, you might be thinking, well, why would we put forward a level-funded budget? Or why would we put two versions of the budget out there? Well, we do that because by law, we're mandated to have a level funded budget. When I say level funded is that we have to have the revenues have to cover the expenses. So the level funded budget for FY27 does just that. It meets the state requirement of being funded, level funded. Now, the stabilization, the other piece, the level service budget, that is where the override plays in. Those shortfalls that we're talking about in those various departments that I talked about extensively, in order for that money not to be cut, we would need an override of $3,413,020. $3,413,020. And that was the various breakdowns to those departments. So if town meeting, you'll be voting on a level funded budget and a level service budget, with the mindset that the level service budget has those additional money necessary to provide the same level of service that you received in FY26 for FY27. A level funded budget is really a cut, because you're giving a department the same amount of money that they had in the previous fiscal year, which is FY26, which is the fiscal year we're in. And you might be thinking, well, how does that happen? The level funded budget doesn't take into consideration collective bargaining. So we're going to have people's salaries go up. We negotiate contracts. Those salaries will go up. And you hear about budget busters, the pension fund, healthcare, two big budget busters, but we have to provide, it's a moral and legal responsibility to provide healthcare and retirement for our employees. So those costs are not in. So in the level funded budget, there would be shortfalls for all of those types of services. Now, what else is there? So what I want to stress is, so those are the two things. You're going to vote level funded, level service budget. When you vote for the level service budget, that has the additional $3,413,020 worth of needed funding to provide the same services at the same level that were provided for in FY26. And remember, the level funded budget, even though it's balanced, doesn't have the extra money, so there will be a cut to those services. The final piece of this is that you then, in order for the override to pass and to go into effect, it's a two-pronged system. You have to have the positive vote for the stabilization money at town meeting, and then you have to win at the ballot box at the special election on May 16th. So two things would have to happen for the override to pass. Override's got to pass at town meeting, and it has to pass at the ballot box on May 16th. Whatever passes in both of those then would be funded. So there's a menu option. If you've already voted or you're going to town hall, there is early voting going on, so you can vote. You go to the town clerk's office, and Leanne and Barbara will have the ballots ready for you, and you can vote over the counter. I believe today, once town hall closes at 12 o'clock, there's no voting because they're setting up for the town election that will take place tomorrow. So it's important to remember that. So just to reiterate, there are some important dates. Tomorrow is the town election. On April 25th, polls open 8 to 6. Special town meeting, May 4th, 7 o'clock, Abington High School Complex. And finally, the special election for the override will take place on Saturday, May 16th. Polls open 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Check the town's website later on this afternoon. It's my goal to have up the warrant and we'll have the warrant posted in those places around town later this afternoon. They were required to. A copy of the budget will be put up so people can take a look at that. And I hope that I was able to answer questions that are out there. If people have other questions that they think of, if there's something that I may have missed, feel free to reach out to me. Either send me an email, give me a call at Town Hall. I'm happy to answer questions because I want people. Now, when people go to town meeting, whatever handouts you need, they'll be available at the back of the auditorium. And I think that will cover it. Any information, we'll make sure. Now, the other thing I want to remind residents about is you can go on the website. If you want to look at past budgets, go to the town accountant's website, and Andrew's done a great job of having all of the old budgets readily available and other pertinent financial information on the town accountant's website. Since Andrew's been here, he's really made all of that financial information extremely transparent, and I think that goes a long way for our residents to feel comfortable about how the finances are handled in our town. So also on the town's website, there's a box that you'll be able to click, and in that box you will find the things that you need for town meeting. There'll be a copy of the budget. There'll be a copy of the warrant. We're going to have a little chart out there about what the impact will be for the override. How does that affect you financially? So we're going to have like a little chart. I think we're doing like a $500,000 house, a $750,000 house, and a $900,000 house. And it will show you the fiscal impact on an annual basis. And then, of course, we get our tax bills 4 times a year. So you can divide by 4, and that will tell you what the increased cost would be for each quarter. So there is a lot of information out there. There will be a lot of information out there. I think it's important that our residents be educated and have as much information as possible so that when they show up at town meeting, we can get through the articles. I know Sean Riley, our town moderator, does a fantastic job. I've enjoyed the short time that I've been working with him. It's been fantastic. He makes himself readily available, and I'm looking forward. I've been told by a number of residents, not town hall folks, but residents, that he does an incredible job of really moving the questions, making sure that there's the right amount of impactful questions per article, and then very efficient voting. So I hope people show up. I'm going to close with reminding people tomorrow is the town election on April 25th. We have the town meeting on Monday, May 4th at 7 o'clock. And we have the special election on May 16th. And both elections, whether it's the town election or the special election, the polls will be open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. I'd just like to say thank you for tuning in, and I intend to continue to provide thoughtful, insightful information about our community, about our government, and some unique, interesting things that I'll be working on and sharing with the general public over the summer. So hope everyone has a wonderful day. Be safe, and look forward to seeing you at town election, at town meeting, and at the special election.